Started in France in the 1930s, where married couples were asking their priest, how do I live my spirituality, my married spirituality? How do I do this? And the father at the time, they sat down together and they developed this charism that now has become domestic church. When Father Blachnicki in Poland found out about Teens of Our Lady, which was in France, he sent Sister Jadwiga Skutor to France to learn how to do this. How do we do this for married couples? How do we serve them? So she went. It was all like pretty secret because Poland was communist at the time. She brought it back in, and Ksiądz Blachnicki had started a retreat movement for young people. And when they started getting married, he was looking for some kind of formation for them. He brought in Teens of Our Lady and added onto it a retreat portion, so it evolved. It was more than just Teens of Our Lady, but they're our sister movement, and we work with them very often. At that point, he began to bring in the couples and have formation through retreats that would be for 2 weeks long, weekend retreats, week retreats, and then they go back to their monthly meetings, and of course the whole movement took place between the married couple. What happened here in Canada was that when I was engaged to be married to my husband Tom, the priest in Scarborough, Father in Scarborough, Olbrich, okay? No. Father Olbrich said to us, well, he was doing our private marriage preparation at the time, and he said, I want you to go, I want you to learn how to do this, I want you to do it in my parish. So in Louisiana, and now in that area of the United States, there's over 50 teens, and a very quick pace, and it's grown. Here in Canada, we're getting ready to branch right out into the English-speaking community, and we're developing everything. There's a lot of material, everything has to be prepared, and there's a lot of couples who are waiting to be on a team, and they're waiting for the retreats to happen so we can bring them together. The most beautiful charism that we carry is the obligations. Now when I say that, you're going to think, this is like Catholic stuff, right? But it is like this. We pray every day with the Bible. We pray together as a married couple. We have children, and as long as the children are in our house, we pray with our families, our children. We have something called a sit-down, which is a long-lost art of discernment. We sit down once a month, and we figure out, what does God want us to do? What is His will? We have the rule of life. So my husband's complaining about me all the time, I'm complaining about my husband, and now we get a chance to try to change something in our lives so we can become more like Christ to each other. And we take on these rules of life, all kinds of different things. And finally the retreats. So we go to retreats for a week, we go to retreats for weekends, and if we're lucky we go in Canada for 10 days. With our families, with our children, with our teenagers. And what is amazing about this, for me personally, so that's what we do, is that we promise every month that we're going to try really hard to do this. The movement happens between the married couple. And then I come out to my peers and I tell them how my struggles went and how it was hard and what was easy and what I want to try. They pray for me. Now the beauty of this also is that it's parish-based. It always sends you back into the parish to be an absolute service to your pastor. So you can do whatever he needs, whether it's whatever group is needed. We're all over the place. I personally work with youth teams of Our Lady. So these are things that we do that come out of this. Me personally, so the most powerful thing for me has been praying with my husband. And our children are leaving the house. We're like Sarah and Abraham or Elizabeth, and now we're being asked to go out and go to other couples and start English-speaking teams and help other people to know how incredible it is to live with God in your marriage. And it's beautiful. Our young people, our kids, were like, when we had our very first meeting, like we didn't have anyone taking care of our kids, they'd sit on the floor around us. And as we were doing this each month, they would see these people coming into the house every single month faithfully and they saw, okay, so is it true when those people are gone? Are my parents better? Do they love each other more? Are they better with us? And they're witnesses. So the best thing I can tell you is so many children that I work with, youth teams of Our Lady, have gotten married. And now those kids have gone out and started teams, or trying to start teams, getting ready to start teams, working with teams of Our Lady, working with domestic church, and they want to do it too. So is there any better thing than that, where they say, this movement was a part of my parents' marriage?
A real strengthening of the basic reality of the family, especially in this world and these days where we find such an environment which is not friendly towards the faith, the gospel, and the family. And so I'm very, very glad to learn more about the domestic church and Teams of Our Lady and the other groups that are doing very important work in this area. You know, I think that Bishop Sheen was one of a great hero for me, and ever since I was a little boy, and especially when I was a high school student, I read his books about the priesthood. And one of the things that, and he's written also some books on marriage too and family, but he always said that if you have a box full of pepper and you want to get rid of it or something, you fill the box with salt rather than worrying about the pepper. And so I think that's a lot of wisdom in that. You have a box full of pebbles, you want to fill it with diamonds, you put the diamonds in, the pebbles go out the other end. So it's, in other words, it's always better to emphasize the good and to build upon the good and let that grow and let that squeeze out the things in life which are not good. And it seems to me that domestic church is very much oriented in that direction, to build the good that is at the very heart of the family, which is so very important in our life, and in that way to be a real light to the nations, which is really what, from the Second Vatican Council, the very fundamental document, Lumen Gentium, we're called to be a light to the nations. And for that matter, the first reading today from Isaiah on the first Sunday of Advent, speaking about the light of the Lord to shine in the darkness. And I think that's what we really need to be attentive to. Often there is a lot of darkness. That's why in this Advent season, it's a penitential season too. We see the joy and we see the hope which comes to us from the Lord. But if we're honest, we realize that not many of us are ready to meet the Lord. And in the sense, I always say that unless we're eager to joyfully run towards the Lord, as it says in the opening prayer, then we better hurry up and get to confession, because we're often not ready to meet Him. But I think the way in which we can do that is by building the good. And that's what we find. I think what you described in the domestic church movement is that's what we need. And I'm very glad to hear that it is spreading around. We need it in all of our parishes. We need it everywhere. And so what I'd like to do as a kind of a follow-up from this afternoon is maybe get in touch with people engaged in this movement to see if there are ways in our own diocese in which we can encourage this. Or, I think it's not the kind of thing that comes from the bishop and saying, go and do this. It's best to work as it is working from within. But there are ways in which the diocese can not make it happen, because the Lord makes it happen through you, but to provide environments and openings and opportunities and things like that, which would help in that way. There are other groups too, I know. There are groups, for example, the whole movement, Couples for Christ, is especially in the Filipino community, but elsewhere too. Now it is split. There's the Couples for Christ that was involved very much with social justice issues, and also very much involved with family issues. And now I think they've split into two Couples for Christ movements. And I never can tell when I'm invited to a Couples for Christ movement if this is the family one or the social justice one, but they kind of work together. Another group which is one that I have had people speak to our priests, because it certainly helps if the priest in the parish is encouraging things like this. It certainly helps. And you were mentioning how a priest initiated or encouraged involvement in this. There's a group that deals with some of the struggles in life that we find, the movement of Retrovae, which is very, very helpful for people whose marriage is in some way really broken down or is going through great struggles. And couples who have gone through that struggle have formed that movement and help others who are going through struggles. So I always very much am a very great supporter of the Retrouvaille movement, which helps people in that particular situation in life. And of course, it's also Marriage Encounter and other such groups. So I'm really glad to learn more about domestic church. And I really had, I must say, I've been here 10 years, and maybe we're working very beautifully on it, sort of behind the scenes, and because I'm running all over the place and just hard to know, but I'm very, very glad to hear about it. Independence, or from our dependence, but from our interdependence. It's our love, our support for one another in which we find ourselves. And so I think that is where it's very wonderful that anything that will help families to be more like that will be a great blessing. I really want to encourage. I mean, I'm thinking a lot about this, the threat of euthanasia and what it does for, and also the threat to medical people. Just last night I was giving a meeting with the Catholic Medical Society. They're putting out terrible pressure for the human conscience. But I think, especially in that issue of people at the end of life, that they need to find help dealing with the pain of loneliness as well as the medical pain or the physical pain, but also that sense that our dignity as human beings comes from the fact that what I am in the sight of God, that I am indeed, no more, no less. It's just the fact of being given this great gift of dignity of the human person, and that's something which the more it is revered and celebrated in our life in general, but certainly within the family, where we treat each person with reverence, then I think we have truly found what that relationship of interdependence is really the heart of our life. It's what we mean when we pray in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. It's when we live that way, because we're made in the image and likeness of God. We're not made to look out for number one. We're made to give and to love to one another. And in that way, we find our joy and our happiness, and not in any other way. So I think that's a thing where I'm very grateful for any movement or any effort that helps to build that sense of real, responsible, sacrificial love, which is the only way in our life. Sometimes I think I say our society looks upon the autonomous individual as the model. The other thing, of course, look at the state as the model, which is really not good either, because then it's that we were slaves of the state. This idea of the mighty state and the individual is the two things. Well, no, the model is the family. It is the small community of love that is there, the covenant of love of a man and a woman faithful in love and open to the gift of life. That really is the model.